Hi there, welcome to another Brooks audio tutorial. A couple of my patrons have requested that I talk more about how we integrate external hardware with Ableton and very much specifically about the RE-201. So I'm going to show you my workflow. Let's go. Okay, so I've got a couple of stems here from one of the Slim Blue tracks called Harder. I've got the music exported here and the vocals exported as a separate stem. So how does it sound? Something like this. So in this instance, I probably would want to use the space echo to make some kind of delay into the breakdown, and then I might even try it and use the same signal from the RE-201 to create a riser up towards the drop. So how do I do that? Well, first of all, let's look at routing. In Ableton, I have my audio preferences set up where I have my inputs and outputs labeled on my sound card. And I've got mono inputs labeled here. So mono input 4 is my RE-201 input to my sound card. And if I go to output configuration, I can see that output number 6 is also my RE-201. So it's very easy if you utilize this labeling in Ableton. You can, especially if you've got a more complicated sound card setup, similar to mine, where actually a lot of the patching is done electronically rather than with the patch bay. I do have a patch bay, but then we've got the option to very easily select the outputs and the inputs which are required to route to the RE-201. Now, what I normally would do is duplicate the vocal and actually pick the bit of the vocal that I want to delay or that I want to affect with the RE-201. So it's not necessarily the whole vocal. So I'm just gonna process left for me. So that will just be that yeah, that'll just be that little bit there. So maybe just tidy that up a bit. And potentially we can look at putting a little fade on the beginning. Okay, so that's what I'm going to send to the effects unit. Put a little fade on the end as well. That's what I'm going to affect. So that's going to be routed out to an external output, and as I labeled it up, my mono output to RE-201 is here. So I can test that now straight away by hitting play, and I should see some level on the front of the RE-201. Great, so just to explain the routing here, so output 6 of the sound card is connected to this jack cable, and that goes into the from PA input. Now there are other inputs to the RE-201, so there's the mic inputs here and an instrument input as well. If you are using a guitar, yes, or a microphone, you could use these. The advantage of using these is that you get a volume control, so you've got an input level control for those, but actually that's not necessary so much with a sound card, because obviously what we're routing to this input, which is a line level input, from our sound card, we've got various different places where we can set up the gain structure. So I've got the outputs from Ableton, and I've also got the outputs on the sound card. So that might be, in your case, that might be a physical knob control that you've got, or it might just be an electronic mixing control that you can use to attenuate the output of the sound card and what's appearing at the input here. If you did want to use the instrument input, you could check out my video on reamping, and you could use a DI box in reverse, a passive DI box in reverse, to convert your line level signal from your sound card into something which would be more appropriate in terms of its level and impedance to present to the instrument input there. Once we've got that set up, then we've also got an output here, and I tend to have this set on the high output setting, which goes back into my sound card. That's just trial and error. I set that up, and that seems right for me with my gain structure. So to look at the unit other than the inputs, which we've looked at, and the physical controls, you've really got the mode selector, of course named after the famous techno band, and then you've also got the two different sections effectively. So we've got a spring reverb inside here, and there's also of course a tape echo as well. And the black section at the top is the spring, and the green section underneath refers to the controls for the tape. So at the moment I've got it set to reverb only. So we should, if I go back over to Ableton, we should hear something coming back in. Actually, I'm going to just mute those other channels, and I'm going to assign my RE-201 input to this channel, and just select input 4. You can see there's a little bit of background noise there already, just rumbling away in that channel. So what I'm going to do is just have a listen to this. And I'm also going to switch it to in. So we're going to use the live input monitoring in order to be able to hear this back through Ableton. Okay, so that is my spring reverb only. Okay, so it's a little bit hot. You can hear it crunching a little bit, and you can see the peak level light coming on. So I'm just going to attenuate this track a little bit, and there's obviously various ways you can do that. You can turn the channel down, you can attenuate the file here. Okay, that's fine. A little bit of clipping, but that's nice. A little bit of crunchiness. I'm quite happy with that. I'm happy for that to be part of the sound of this. Ultimately, we're using analog for a reason, and so, you know, a little clip or a little bit of distortion is not always unpleasant. So what we're going to do now is have a little listen to that with the original as well. Right, okay, so we can hear now. Right, so there's a pre-delay on this, and where is that pre-delay coming from? So the reverb return is taking time for us to hear it, and ultimately it's down to the latency in the system. So it's always a really good thing to check when you're doing this kind of thing, is to check your latency settings. And actually here, as I suspected, my buffer settings are set high. So I've been using Ableton to do a mix with another project which is very CPU intensive, and I've set my buffer size to the maximum in my case, and I'm hoping that if I record this, what we're going to see, so let's record this back into this channel here. Okay, so what we're going to see, if I switch this back off of the live monitoring input and onto the auto, which means I'm going to hear, rather than hearing what's coming back from the channel, so I'll just to be sure, I'll turn the output to the RE-201 off, and then, so we can hear and we can see indeed that there is a delay there, and it's become part of the audio file. So the point is, we must be very careful what our buffer settings are set to, particularly when we're doing timing intensive or timing sensitive processing. It's very important to be aware that your buffer settings and your latency of your sound card might affect the timing of the signal that you record back into Ableton. So how can we get around that? Well, we can do exactly what I've done here, and we can create a smaller project which doesn't have all of the processing that we have on our mix or when we're writing a track, and we can be then very selective about our latency setting. And in actual fact, I don't need it to be anywhere near this high. I can make it very low, and I can repeat that process again. So I'm just going to re-record that, just remove that, and let's try that again. So we can see with a lower buffer setting, we've immediately got a lower latency, and therefore the timing is better. Now, of course, there might still be a reason to tweak this, so we can, of course, we can trim it in Ableton. And end up with a result like that, which doesn't have any pre-delay. On the other hand, you might really like the pre-delay. You might decide that I'm going to add that manually, so that might be part of the effect that you're going for. So of course, along with the space echo or the effects unit that whichever analog effects unit you have, you've also got the ability to then manipulate the signal coming back in, or once it's back into Ableton and it's recorded as audio. So lots of options. So I personally rarely use the reverb, the Spring Reverb, although it's really nice that it's there, and I do use it from time to time. What I much more often use with my RE-201 is the echo and the tape delay. So I'm just going to switch this into repeat mode, and if you look here, you can see it's repeat. This gives me access to just the tape, and then these reverb and echo settings here are, as they say on the tin, really reverb and echo together. So I'm just going to cycle through these, but I'm going to turn the reverb off, and I'm just going to let you hear with a low intensity and sort of a medium repeat rate what each one of these settings sounds like. So let's remove this and switch this back to input mode. And then I'll turn back on my signal, which is sending out to the device, and I'll just set up a little loop, and you'll be able to hear the effects of those different settings. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And then I'll bring in the reverb. 10, 9, 8, 9, sorry. 8, 7, 6, 5. Okay, so you can hear that 1, 2, 3 and 4 are basically repeated again with 5, 6, 7, 8, except that the reverb is added, and then 9, 10 and 11 are just variants on 8, I believe. So I, generally speaking, will be working with something like repeat number 3, where I don't want any Spring Reverb, and I just want my echo, and then I'll start playing around with the repeat rate until I get something which matches the tempo to a satisfactory level. So let's just turn on the click and have a listen. Yeah, so that's nice, kind of a triplet delay, which is very pleasant. So I'm going to now expand I'll turn my loop off, and I'm going to record now. Give it a little bit of an intro. I'm going to record with the track so that I can hear how the echo effect, tape echo effect, is going to sound with the music. And then I'll play around as I record. I'll change the intensity and the repeat rate in order to try to get the kind of effect that I'm after, with a bit of a riser and let's just see how we go. So here we go. So there you go. So you can see and hear how I basically performed using the controls on the front. Sometimes you can get some really nice crunchy stuff going on by switching the mode. And this is what I've found. So after the section that you've created and the bit that so after the drop basically. So once I've got to the drop, then I usually try and play around and create some more atmospheric kind of stuff. By switching and increasing the intensity. Depends on the quality of your tape as well. So if you've got a grotty old tape, which sometimes is beneficial, where it's really broken and it gives you, so you'll have set patches of the tape which are kind of grotty and broken, and that'll break up the rhythm more, so you actually get some kind of loads of happy accidents going on. This is a relatively new tape, so it's not quite as grimy as one that I've been using for some time. I got a new tape this year, so let's have another listen to that. We'll just turn off this. So we're listening to the recording, and we could turn the track off as well and have a listen to that a bit more carefully. Just turn that up a bit. And then I obviously was thinking about getting up towards the drop, so I started to change the repeat rate at this point. And this is where I'm playing around. So you get some really nice, tasty little effects like that going on. Yeah. So what I probably would do at this point is I would trim that, create that, turn that into a new file, and then that's around for processing later. So that might even form part of the intro to the track, this bit. I'm not going to necessarily use it directly after. Sometimes I'll let it run on into the drop, where all the beats and the bass come in, or sometimes I'll save that little bit for the breakdown later on, depending on what I want to do with it. Also, there's also, as I said before, there's also, it's ripe for a bit of digital manipulation as well. So maybe I didn't quite get the pitch fade that I wanted, in which case I can just apply a pitch shift to the clip, so a transposition, and whatever mode this is in. So usually I would use texture mode. This will affect the way that you hear the transposition. So I might want to make this riser a bit more prominent, so I want it to go up another 12 semitones before the end of the drop. So let's have a listen to that. Yeah, so maybe even a little bit more. I could pull that up. Yeah, so a bit of extra digital manipulation can help you to get to where you want to go on top of what you've recorded from your analog effects unit. Well, I hope that was useful. Please check out some of the other videos on the channel, including the reamping video, which might be very interesting for you with regards to bringing external hardware into Ableton and making it work with your sound card. And please check out my Patreon, links in the description below. You can also find the link to the track that I was working on and where it's released in the description below as well. Please feel free to drop me any comments or questions as always, and I'll see you next time. Peace!